John Razimus here. The sun is setting, we might lose the light, but for the first time I wanted to share on camera an experience that happened to me when I was about 4 years old. I was electrocuted for 10 minutes straight, I estimate, because I'll tell you the story, but the fire department was called to help me away from this electric wire. This was in the 80s, a long time ago. I believe my parents moved to Colorado for a very short period of time. It was at the Colorado house. And I don't have any memory of the inside of the house. I only have one memory when I was 4 years old of that house, of the backyard. My brother and sister were playing cops and robbers. And my brother and sister are a couple years older than me. My sister is about 1.5 years older than me, and my brother is about 3 years older than me. So if I was 4, my brother was 7, the big 7, I was the tiny 4, and my sister would have been like 5.5. And they were playing cops and robbers. And I said, "Hey, can I play?" And my brother and sister are like, "No, small fry, get out of here." As you will see, repeated time and time again. Very common scenario. In this house, or in the backyard of this house, there was a wooden fence, very tall one, from my perspective of 4 years old. But there was a metal wire about, I don't know, we're talking 2 inches off the ground. It was very low. And it might have been 1 inch off the ground. And even as a 4-year-old, I knew not to touch it. I knew, maybe don't touch it. Maybe I even had a memory, hey kids, don't touch the wire. But I don't remember. All I remember is this. Brother and sister playing cops and robbers. They said, "You can't play with us." And my brother eventually said, "Okay, you can play, but you have to be the robber. But we'll only play with you if you're the robber and you grab that fence. You grab the fence and we'll pat you down." You know, cops and robbers. And I was hesitant. Even as a 4-year-old, I was like, "Nah, I don't want to grab the wire." My brother's like, "It's safe. It's safe. Don't worry about it." And my sister repeated him, "It's safe. Don't kid." And I was convinced. As a 4-year-old, you didn't need much to convince me. So I grabbed the wires. They convinced me so well that I grabbed them with both hands like this. The wire was very small. It was a very tiny silver-colored wire, and I grabbed it, and I was immediately electrocuted, and I was like this. I couldn't even talk, to be honest, and my brother and sister immediately knew they were in trouble. So first, my brother tried to pull me off the wire because I couldn't let go. And the reason I couldn't let go, and you only learn this from firsthand experience in a scenario like this, I do not recommend it. Do not grab electric wires, kids or adults, anyone. Stay away from an electric wire. This was specifically placed either by the people who own the house, which my parents were renting, or maybe the neighbor. I can't remember if the fence ended and then there was a wire, or if it was only on this side of the fence, but he was obviously there to keep dogs from digging underneath the fence. They would be shocked by their nose and they would stop the digging, or their paws. It was a pretty strong charge. I've been electrocuted here and there, touching Christmas lights that were damp outside, plugging them in or unplugging them one year. I got a little shock, no big deal. Someone handed me a broken disposable camera and they said, "Hey, here, hold this." And it shocked me because it was, you know, you can break those and you can shock people with them. Don't do that. And then I touched an electric shocking lighter, one of those joke ones. They shock you. They give you pretty good shock, but nothing compared to the 10 minutes I was electrocuted when I was 4 years old. I estimate 10 minutes because my brother tried to pull me off and he was electrocuted so much that he backed away. He's like, "I can't touch him. It hurts." I think maybe my sister tried, but she probably went and got my mom. She probably tried. No one could pull me free, because when you're holding on to an electric wire, the electricity itself causes the muscles in your hands to stay in a gripping position. So you couldn't ungrip even if you wanted to. That's what happened to me. I couldn't ungrip, even if I wanted to. It's getting very dark. Let's switch it into the old night vision mode. All right. But I was being electrocuted. I couldn't let go if I wanted to. My hands wouldn't allow me to let go because of the muscles being in that constrictive position. I've shared this story very few times, but my brother remembers it. He can retell it. My sister remembers it. My mom remembers it. When you're electrocuted for 10 minutes straight, it could be my origin story as to how I got the ability to distinguish energy when it walks through me a little bit better than other people. I wouldn't test it, and don't quote me on saying, oh, electrocuting yourself will give you magic powers. Do not in any way, shape, or form touch anything electric. I told this story at the Comedy Store back in October, October 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I believe it was the 2nd or the 3rd of October. It was about 2 a.m. in the original room, and immediately the comedians make fun of me. And understandably, when you bring up such a subject, they're going to make fun of it. One of the comedians said, hey, a question. I've been taking your electrocution classes, and I haven't gained any psychic powers yet. Am I doing it wrong? And they just really, were riffing off me, making fun of me. But this is a true story. It actually happened. Don't electrocute yourself. It was a total accident. Actually, as a 4-year-old, I was suckered into it by my brother and sister. They knew they were in trouble the second they saw me being electrocuted. They well knew, or at least my brother knew, that that was an electric wire designed to keep dogs out of the yard. It could have been put there by the neighbor. I think the neighbor had a dog. I never saw it. Probably never saw it because it probably got shocked by this electric wire at one time or another, but wow. I would never install something like that, especially with kids in the backyard. So my mom probably tried. I remember my brother trying, and him jumping away. It hurt him so much, even to touch me. He grabbed my arms or grabbed my torso, and phew, the electricity went through my entire body, from my hands to my feet. And I have to assume how science works, how electricity works. It flowed through me, and it flowed straight into the ground. I was the circuit for the voltage. I don't know how high the voltage was. Obviously not high enough to kill me. You have to have pretty high voltage to kill someone. It's only designed to scare dogs away, but high enough where they're not going to retry digging. I don't know how many volts. I have no idea to this day, but it was an extremely high amount. I'm surprised I didn't have a heart attack in that little 4-year-old body. I was like this. I couldn't talk. It was crazy. My mom called the fire department. The fire department came. It took 2 big burly firemen in full fireman regalia with the rubber boots, with the rubber gloves, and they both grabbed one of my legs and they yanked me, and whew, I'm just glad I was able to let go. Them brute force able to pull me away from the wire. And I didn't get burned, no burn marks. There was probably just a crease mark where the wire was, but there weren't any burns that I remember. I remember the fireman gave me a little lollipop at the end and said, so stay safe. I don't remember much. This was a long time ago. I was 4 years old. But thinking about how when ghosts walk through me, spirits walk through me, and recognizing full well in my 20s, recognizing, no one else experiences this, the few people I mentioned it to. We're talking, by the time I was 21, I pretty much, 23, pretty much age 23, I figured out what it was. Because as a 10, 15, 20-year-old, I just thought it was, just atmospheric changes, the temperature changes, and you can get a rush, with an extreme temperature change, but it's nothing like when a spirit walks through you. When a spirit walks through me, I can gauge its positive as in good. I have to assume super creepy, negative spirits, when they walk through me, I feel probably what they feel all the time. So like their essence of their energy, of their being, becomes mine for a second, and then they leave. Very freaky, very scary. It's not possession. I wouldn't doubt that they're gauging my body if it's ripe. I don't believe I've ever been possessed, but I do believe spirits find me an oddity when they walk through me, as I believe they walk through every human. M theory, string theory, also known as M theory, the M sometimes means membrane theory, of the different dimensions stacked on top of each other. There are different dimensions stacked on top of us, whether you like to believe this or not. The scientists around the world have built the Large Hadron Collider, Geneva, Switzerland, that gigantic circle underground, to shoot particles at each other, and when they explode, they can see with the computers if there's any radiation from a higher dimension. They're trying to prove higher dimensions exist, because they know that when particles explode into each other, that a little piece, a little fragment, tiny, minuscule, almost impossible to calculate amount of that particle dissipates and disappears. Where does it go? Into another dimension, they think. They wouldn't have spent $18 billion building the thing if they weren't dead sure these higher dimensions in the multiple membranes stacked upon us didn't exist. They wouldn't have wasted $18 billion. They're so confident it exists, they're going to be running these tests forever. Even at the expense of $1 billion a year or every couple years, it's a very expensive procedure, process, setup. And then there's the fringe. Then there's the outside of the box, not mainstream science, as taboo and untouchable as a scientist will never come within a 1,000-mile radius of the type of things I'm talking about without being probably made fun of in the scientific community. But intelligent beings in these higher membranes, these higher dimensions, exist. They walk through me on a regular basis, therefore I have to conclude they probably walk through everybody. But not everybody can notice when it happens. I'm not psychic. I wouldn't consider myself psychic. Other people might say I'm a little bit psychic. I love science. I'm a fan of science. Science is the only way we're going to be able to calculate and really judge and read and write down and record these things on any level where they can be saved. Because in 100 years, do you think someone's going to say, oh, the discovery of the ghost box turning green 100 years ago, remember when that ghost box turned green? Phenomenal discovery. No, in 100 years, they're not going to even mention or care about that. It's going to be a joke in 100 years, unless someone with a scientific mind says, oh, there was 20,000 volts of electricity appearing out of nowhere and intelligently communicating. We recorded it, we documented it, we asked it yes or no questions. And why does the other side not want to communicate? Trust me, there are a million questions I have and I don't have the answers to them. I wouldn't claim to. Anyone that claims to have all the answers, they're probably selling a book, and they're probably just wanting to go on the circuits of the conventions and build themselves up as some great whatever. That's not me. I'm just here to record something, and my body can record it, but then again, I understand. Science won't take it seriously. I understand fully. So I'm writing a few books, and I'm a very slow writer because I have a regular job, regular 9-to-5 job, a regular job like anyone else, grinding the grind. When you get home from work, the last thing you want to do is start writing on your book, but it's so important. I have to write my books. I have to finish them. I'm not scatterbrained, despite having been electrocuted for 10 minutes straight when I was 4 years old. But I am a multitasker. I will work on 10 projects at the same time. If I get bored with one project, I won't stop doing it. I'll go back to it a year later. I work on many art projects, painting, music, illustrating, drawing, writing. And the world does not respect a poet. The world does not respect a musician that's not successful. The world does not respect a painter that doesn't sell a single painting. So I like to move on to millions of different mediums. And I'm not a medium, I'm not a psychic, but I do see the lens of the artistic. Directing and even acting perhaps would be interesting. I would like to pursue that. But I've never acted on any level of other than perhaps, for YouTube. You want to make yourself a little presentable, maybe a little joyful, yeah. In your everyday life, do you walk around like that? I mean, I don't. So if people think my videos are low-key, you should see me in real life, way low-key, because, I kind of try to reserve my energy. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a doctorate. But my dad did work for NASA. My dad helped on the blueprints as a mechanical and electrical engineer with a master's in both those degrees. He graduated from UCLA. He was contracted, like many engineers, to help build the rockets and the lunar lander on the various Apollo missions. And he worked on that firsthand. And so I'm very scientific oriented when I hear people talk about, oh, we didn't land on the moon, man. If we didn't land on the moon, I would have never been born, because my dad was paid for the job he did as an engineer, and he was able to feed his family, and therefore I was born. No moon landing, I wouldn't exist. But let's get back to me being electrocuted for 10 minutes straight. I think it's the reason why. I think it electrocuted my spirit on some permanent level. And when a spirit walks through me, I know it happened. A spirit walked through me today as I was waiting to get my hair cut. I got a haircut. The haircut place was across the street from the haunted mall. And it could have been the same ghost, could have been a different one. See, I can gauge whether it's positive, negative, neutral, strong, weak. That's it. So I can't really gauge whether it's male or female. But I can gauge whether it walks through me twice instead of once. I can gauge if it walks front to back, back to front, right to left, left to right. A Buddhist master of a particular Buddhist discipline talked about that. It blew me away because I didn't know anyone knew about that. So that's a written belief in some disciplines of Buddhism, many different branches. I like to focus simply on the scientific and even the fringe paranormal scientific, which isn't accepted yet, but I do believe, maybe in 100 years, maybe in 50 years, maybe in 20 years, it really is going to take a few doctors with some guts to get out there and say, hey, you know what? Let's debunk these ghost shows. They get the equipment and holy moly, this stuff works sometimes. This is illogical. I would say to a scientist, if you want a laboratory that's haunted for laboratory scientific research repeated incidents that can be recorded and repeated on a predictable basis level of research and investigation, just go to an extremely haunted location. Buy the location or rent the location. I'm sure if a ghost crew can do it, then a scientist could do it. But scientists at the current time, it goes against their paradigm. It goes against what they've been taught. It goes against the textbooks. I understand that. Oh, that was debunked 150 years ago. Was it? See, even table tapping, spirit reading, Ouija boards, spirit boards, planchettes that move on their own. I don't deal with any occult stuff concerning magic or witchcraft or anything like that. I focus on scientific equipment. I'm going to build my very own static electricity detector, which is totally different from the milligauss detecting EMF, electromagnetic field readers. Those are useful, and most definitely spirits can fluctuate an EMF meter. But many things can do that. A cell tower, a power line, even a cell phone can cause those things to go off like crazy, depending upon what mode on your cell phone you're in. The applications on your cell phone, they're going to be, you have Facebook on your cell phone, you have some camera app, Snapchat or whatever, and you leave them on, and you have notifications on. The satellites are constantly communicating with that cell phone to make sure all the data is up to date. And during that communication between the satellites and the cell towers and your cell phone, these EMF waves are shooting back and forth in the air. And if you have a ghost detecting device, you're going to get false readings. But with static electricity, it's a whole different ballgame, whole different story. It is the double blind. It is the really ability, the way with a scientific piece of equipment, you to really tell, hey, static electricity doesn't intelligently float around away from static sources. So I have purchased a number of professional business, factory grade static meters, but none of them were designed for ghosts. All of them were designed for business equipment to make sure they're grounded so they don't fry a microchip or stuff like that. I did work at a printer factory with a clean room in Oregon, and we had to suit up and walk through the clean room. It would clean us off, and it would get rid of the static off of our clothes. And a NASA, extreme, like their clean rooms are probably intense. Static electricity is a field that we don't have a full grasp of, whether you think rubbing a balloon against your head and seeing some foam stick to it or different pieces of paper stick to it and whatnot. Yes, it can be taught and you can learn on a very simplistic level, but there's a static electricity research center at NASA. It is that important of a subject. I wonder if they've ever walked around with those meters down the street. If they have, they've kept the findings to themselves, because I have walked down the street with them. Not every street is super haunted, but some streets are. And I can verify it on a level higher than other people. I can feel the spirit walk through my body. Can't prove it with science. I already realize that. But I can prove it with EMF. Oh, what about the cell phones? Okay, understandable. The static field being broken. Nothing can do that other than a static field that's fairly obvious, or a spirit, especially when you get intelligent responses. Can you walk away from the device? Can you walk toward the device? Consistent walk away and walking toward. I'm not into having a full-blown conversation with a ghost or a spirit. Not into that. And it's the reason I don't ask elaborate questions. What's your name? Did you die here? I don't jump to the conclusion the entity died there. I don't jump to the conclusion that the entity even wants to reveal his name or even has a name. But I do think this is intelligent electricity to an extent, intelligent static electricity. I think they can change the way their energy works to the point where they could walk into any electronic equipment, see the circuit board. They are energy, they are electricity, and they're intelligent. And they can see all the circuit boards. As I talked about in previous videos, they have X-ray vision. But they have X-ray vision probably because they're not solid matter from our dimensional perspective. They walk through our solid matter like it's, from their perspective, our solid matter is like mist. They can just walk right through it. No resistance. But I am going to build a static electricity meter. I'm going to have the voltage or kilovolts, whatever the case. You know, maybe I'll have an analog and a digital, maybe LED. I don't want to go overboard, but I would like a really sensitive voltage, and then maybe the bigger ones. I know a certain amount of volts per square inch represents static electricity, and it's quite a lot. And it doesn't randomly float down the street intelligently on an intelligent level. There are a million different reasons why I know it's intelligent, but it's hard to convey and it's hard to prove. So I like to focus on the science. And I see a lot of people in the paranormal fields. Oh, can you set that off? Beep. Oh, cool. That was awesome. Did you die here? Beep. Oh, awesome. Are you 20 years old? If you're more than 20 years old, can you set it off? I think these things are millions of years old, hundreds of thousands of years old. They're not 20 years old. And likely they're not someone that just died yesterday. I don't even jump to the conclusion they are human. I consider them almost alien. But intelligent, but not foreign to this planet. They're from this planet, but they're from a dimension stacked above us, membrane that is coexisting with us. And this isn't any reptilian aliens shape-shifting. This is regular beings on their plane of existence. And we're regular beings on our plane of existence. But because they're above us, they have the ability to check us out and watch us. They're interested in us. I don't think they're physical. I think they're non-physical. I think it's the reason why no one has brought back any physical proof of these beings. There isn't any physical proof. I want to show you this picture of me and my brother and sister. I was way older than 4 at this time, as you can tell. But you can see my brother and sister are in the same pose, like nerds. And me, the cool one, I'm off on my own, doing my own thing. And it's been like that for a long time. So you can see the cops and robbers story making a little more sense. You know, they're closer in age. They kind of do their own thing. And I'm like, I'm good. I was a cool kid. I wasn't a dork, but no offense to dorks, you know. But I didn't know spirits existed until I was X years old. I'm not going to reveal my origin story of when I first learned spirits existed. But most definitely I've had a belief spirits, intelligent, non-physical beings existed. But it was never one based on a book. It was always based on first-hand experience. And most definitely I went to a building where people said, oh, ghost this, ghost that, spirit this, spirit that. I'm like, okay. And everyone's like, okay. But if you say in any of those buildings, hey, by the way, yesterday a spirit walked through me. What? They lose their mind and they freak out. So it doesn't matter, even if someone is a strong believer in spirits, they'll still freak out talking to someone that had a first-hand experience with a ghost. It's the funniest thing. It's the strangest thing. Very strange. We're talking a full-blown atheist will react exactly the same as someone that you know is very religious and talks about spirits scripturally on a regular basis. That's when you question, that's strange. I'm telling a true story of my life. I told it to an atheist. They're pretty skeptical, understandably. I told it to a solid, diehard, firm believer, and they're even more skeptical sometimes than the atheist. The world is topsy-turvy. You can't please everyone all the time. I don't put on a front. I tell the truth to the best of my ability. Today I got some jeans on sale, Black Friday. And yeah, it's a good deal. $27.99 or $26.99. Pretty good deal for jeans. Make sure you got that YKK zipper. See, I never buy jeans without a high quality zipper. That's the first thing that breaks. I focus on the truth just as much as I bought 2 pairs of jeans for about $26, $27 today with a YKK zipper on them, just as much as I bought those blue jeans. I was electrocuted when I was 4 years old for, I estimate, approximately 10 minutes. How long does it take to call the fire department? I don't know, but probably about 10 minutes for them to get to the house, right? So theoretically speaking, if they were the fastest fire department in the world, they could have got to my house in 5 minutes. But I don't think so. I remember being electrocuted for such a long time. I don't know, man. I was probably starting to enter a dreamlike state by the end of it. But I was 4 years old, so I don't have a perfect memory. I have a really good memory of the incident, though. A really good memory. I would get my brother and sister on to talk to you guys and say, hey, yeah, this did happen. But they're not YouTubers. They're not into YouTube. They're not into being filmed. A lot of stuff comes with when you put your face on YouTube. A lot of stuff comes. I do want to record and film my dad and interview my dad to talk about his NASA career, contracted NASA career, helping design the blueprints and schematics for the lunar lander. I see all this NASA stuff all over the place. You see NASA Vans collaboration, NASA t-shirts everywhere. So I think I can get one of those t-shirts for my dad. NASA stuff is becoming cheaper. It's hot and trendy, but my dad did legitimately work on the Apollo missions. I can't remember exactly which ones. I don't think Apollo 13. I think it was the other ones. But people have made the joke, Houston, we have a problem. And anyway, this has gone on long enough. Stay tuned. I'm working on the 1830s house documentary. I want it to be perfect. And I want to do a segment on the pirate, the history of the real person that actually lived. This guy, I don't know how long his life was, but he had a couple kids. And I visited his gravesite at a mission. I'll reveal his gravesite is at Mission Santa Barbara. And I filmed his gravesite, and he died such a long time ago that his name isn't there anymore. But his children's names are in the family gravesite. And most definitely that's where his remains rest. And I don't think his spirit has anything to do with the ghost that haunts a house that he built during his career. But he was a master builder, contractor. He knew the European, probably the Spanish style of building houses, which they didn't know in California. So he was promoted to do that, and I think he did help build Mission Santa Barbara. I think he did. He might have been the contractor for Mission Santa Barbara a long time ago. I took the tour. They have a cannonball. They have a pirate cannonball in the building there in the tour behind glass. It's probably a pirate cannonball, a legitimate, authentic one. So it's going to be a cool documentary based on the guy's real life, but mostly focusing on the ghost. I didn't know there was a ghost there until I went there. I have techniques. I can write in a book, I can share, I can teach to get spirits to reveal themselves. There are spirits all around us all the time. I think they almost live their own spirit lives most of the time, almost ignoring us. But you can use certain strategies that are not anything magical. Just, I used common sense. I watched many episodes of Ghost Adventures. I applied some of the techniques I learned. I applied some techniques I was just making up on the spot. Some of them work authentically. Unless I got lucky, all I can say is after you find out a place is haunted, you can go back and basically the spirit will remember you and it'll reveal itself again and again and again on a repeated scientific recordable level with equipment. Until next time, this has been John Razimus. Be seeing you.